When I was 10, I was a bully. I know it sounds horrible, but it's true. My classmate Sophie had the misfortune of being poor, and I took full advantage of it. I made fun of her tattered clothes, her off-brand sneakers, even the way her lunch always seemed to consist of the same sad peanut butter sandwich. I'd rally other kids to laugh at her, making her life a daily misery. It wasn't until years later that I'd understand how cruel I had been, and by then it was far too late. But that Christmas, something happened to me, something I've never been able to explain away. My family flew to Germany to spend the holidays with my mother's family in a small, picturesque town nestled in the Alps. It was my first trip overseas, and I was excited. The cobblestone streets, the snow-dusted rooftops, the glowing candles in every window. It felt like a storybook. On Christmas Eve, my grandmother suggested we visit the local Weihnachtsmarkt, a traditional Christmas market. She said it was magical, full of handmade toys, mulled wine, and delicious sweets. The market was enchanting, just as she'd promised. Twinkling lights hung above rows of wooden stalls, each bursting with ornaments, candles, and gingerbread. The air smelled of roasted nuts and spiced cider. Children laughed as they ran between their parents, bundled up in thick scarves and mittens. I felt the tiniest twinge of guilt as I remembered Sophie, who likely wouldn't see a Christmas tree, let alone a magical market like this. And then I saw him. He was towering and monstrous, standing near a stall selling candied apples. His costume was a tangle of dark fur and horns that spiraled grotesquely upward. A long red tongue lolled out of his snarling mask, and he carried a bundle of birch sticks in one hand and a heavy chain in the other. The children around me screamed with delight, running to tug at their parents' hands and point at the figure. "Krampus!" they shouted, laughing. I had no idea what they were talking about. When I asked my grandmother, she gave me a stern look. "Krampus," she explained, "is the companion of Saint Nicholas. He punishes naughty children." I laughed nervously, but her gaze didn't waver. "He comes with a sack," she continued, "to carry bad children away. They say he takes them to his lair and, well, they are never seen again." Her voice was calm, but her words sent a shiver down my spine. My parents chuckled and waved it off as an old folk tale, but my grandmother's expression was grave. "Be good, Jessica," she said, her voice lowering. "Krampus does not tolerate naughty children." I tried to laugh it off, but I couldn't shake the image of those glowing eyes staring out from behind that hideous mask. The rest of the evening passed uneventfully, though I couldn't stop glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see the figure lurking in the shadows. That night, I woke up needing to use the restroom. The house was silent, the kind of stillness that only exists in the dead of night. After finishing in the bathroom, I stepped out into the hallway and froze. From the corner of my eye, I saw a warm glow of light disappearing from the living room. I hesitated, my heart thudding in my chest. Then a freezing cold breeze swept through the hallway, carrying with it a feeling of dread. The sound of hooves echoed on the wooden floors, followed by low, animal-like grunting. The blood froze in my veins as terror set in. My legs felt heavy, but I forced myself to move, quickly shutting the bedroom door behind me. My heart pounded as I pressed my back against the door, straining to hear any sound over the blood rushing in my ears. Then I heard it, the rattling of chains, heavy, deliberate footsteps, a low growl that seemed to vibrate in the air. Before I could react, the door burst open, and he was there, Krampus. He was even more terrifying up close. His matted fur glistened with frost, and his glowing ember eyes locked onto mine. The long tongue flicked out from his snarling maw, and he raised the bundle of birch stick, stepping into the room. Terror surged through me, but I fought back with everything I had. I grabbed the nearest object, a small lamp from the bedside table, and hurled it at him. It shattered against his chest, and he roared in fury. I scrambled backward, trying to put distance between us, but the room was too small. He swung his bundle of sticks, narrowly missing my head as I ducked and rolled to the other side of the bed. I grabbed the metal bed frame and swung it in his direction, the clang of metal against his chain drowning out his growls for a moment. He lunged at me, his claws raking through the air. I dodged, grabbing a heavy book from the shelf and slamming it into his arm. He stumbled, just for a moment, but it was enough for me to reach the door. I ran, not daring to look back. I slammed the door shut and pressed my back against it, my chest heaving. Silence fell, the kind that made me question if anything had happened at all. My trembling hands clutched the doorknob, but no further sound came from within the room. The next morning, everything was as it had been before. My parents were cheerful and oblivious. There wasn't a single sign of the night's events. No broken lamp, no scuffed floor. I wondered if it had all been a vivid nightmare, but deep down I knew it wasn't. Before that fateful year, Christmas time was my favorite time. With the season to be jolly quickly coming upon us, I feel anxiety and fear more than peace on earth. Just around Halloween at a company costume party, the new girl showed up in a handmade version of a pop princess icon. She was cheerful and trying too hard, her nervous energy practically radiating from her. A coworker whispered a snide remark, and we both laughed just loud enough for her to hear. The smile faded from her face, but before guilt could even take hold, a cold breeze passed through the room, chilling me to the bone. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw it. In a dark corner across the room, red eyes glowing, a grotesque smile on its face. I blinked, and it was gone. There have been other times too, mostly fleeting images in dark corners, accompanied by a drop in temperature and a feeling of doom. One night I was out late, rushing through my last-minute shopping. The stores were packed, and the streets glittered with festive lights. My car's back seat was piled high with colorful packages, each one carefully selected for friends and family. I stayed out later than I should have, trying to cross every name off my list. The parking lot was nearly empty when I finally loaded the last bag into the trunk. The air was bitterly cold, the kind of chill that sinks into your bones. I remember the drive home, the dark, deserted roads winding through patches of forest, the way the snow flurries danced in my headlights. And then, the headlights illuminated something in the middle of the road, a hulking figure with horns, chains glinting in the dim light. I slammed on the brakes, the tires skidding on the icy pavement. My heart was pounding as the car came to a stop, just feet away from him. Before I could react, the figure moved. A clawed hand slammed onto the hood of the car, and the engine sputtered to a stop. The cold seeped into the car, frost creeping along the inside of the windows. I fumbled for my phone, but the screen stayed black no matter how hard I pressed the power button. The door handle wouldn't budge. Then, he was at the driver's side window, his glowing ember eyes staring into mine. He grinned, his long tongue sliding across sharp teeth. The door wrenched open and I was pulled out into the freezing night. I screamed, kicking and thrashing as his claws closed around my arm. "You haven't changed," a voice growled, low and guttural. It echoed in my ears, filling me with a dread so deep I could hardly breathe. He dragged me into the forest, his chains rattling, the snow crunching beneath his hooves. My struggles seemed to amuse him, and his laughter rang out harsh and cruel. The last thing I remember is the cold, the suffocating darkness, and those glowing eyes And then, nothing. The next morning, my car was discovered abandoned on the side of the road. The colorful packages were still there, untouched, but I was gone. I watched it all happen, as if from a distance, an unseen observer in the forest's shadows. My family's frantic cries, the flashing lights of the police cars, the confusion etched on everyone's faces. It was surreal. The cold bit at me even there, unseen, as I realized I could not step forward, could not reach them. You can run, you can grow up, but you can't hide forever. The words echoed in my mind, the voice low and growling. A heavy chain formed to a collar that closed around my neck, my soul forever bound to Krampus. Trapped in his sack of naughty children, we follow behind St. Nicholas's sleigh, the laughter of joyous children and the jingle of bells mocking our eternal despair. So before you misbehave, think twice. Santa's going to check his list twice, and if you're on the wrong side of it, you might find yourself hearing the rattle of chains and the growl of something far worse than coal in your stocking.